Still looking at a too tight to call race and a within the margin of error race. And Donald Trump, despite all advice to the contrary, is leaning back on one of his preferred tactics, targeting Kamala Harris with personal attacks, even as so many other Republicans acknowledge that is not what they see as a winning message.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad, but lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala, and I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
CNN's Elena Trine following this one for us. She joins us now. So, Elena, is there a strategy here, and what are you hearing about this?
This is not the strategy, Kate. And we've been very clear about this and covering this in our reporting, but in my copious amounts of conversations with Donald Trump's senior advisors, with outside allies, they have all pressured him repeatedly to move away from these personal attacks and to focus on the issues. But this is who Donald Trump is. And what's interesting about this is that these attacks came all really following her border visit on Friday. So Donald Trump had a series of rallies this weekend, some in Wisconsin. Yesterday we saw him in Erie, Pennsylvania. And all of his remarks really painted a very dark picture of America. Now, we know that is something that Donald Trump has done time and time again, but his comments really struck a different tone this weekend. And part of the reason I bring up Harris's border visit on Friday is because Donald Trump has been fixated on that, and it has struck, I believe, somewhat of a nerve with him. We know that that is turf that Donald Trump considers his own, and even as she was vowing to crack down on security at the border, to revisit asylum procedures, Donald Trump really turned his fire on her in a way that we haven't seen in a while, with calling her mentally impaired. We know that Donald Trump often refers to Biden as mentally impaired and questions his mental capabilities. But now he's doing that for Harris. And we did see many Republicans really push back on this on Sunday. You saw Lindsey Graham saying that he needs to focus on attacking the issues. Tom Emmer, who's been helping J.D. Vance prepare for the debate, all of them saying this is not the solution here. This is not the strategy. But Donald Trump, again, this is what he does. Kate?
Elena Trine, thank you so much, Elena. Joining us right now is CNN political commentator S.E. Cupp. Let's focus in on what Elena Trine was talking about in terms of, as she's been following the Trump campaign and gone to so many Trump rallies, the dark picture that he is painting continues to paint about the world today. And in part, also falling back on targeting Kamala Harris with personal attacks, even though Republican after Republican continues to say, don't. Let me play this.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad, but lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala, and I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
No, I just think she's crazy liberal. I don't question her.
But what do you think about that rhetoric?
I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying your policies are bad crazy.
Lindsey Graham's take on the messaging and staying on or not on the message. It's not a strategy. It's just, it is Donald Trump. But the impact as it's fallen back on kind of the old tendencies as we're this late in the game. What do you think of this?
It's not a good idea, and Republicans who are worried about the health of the party down ballot know it's not a good idea. Swing state voters, undecided voters tell us they don't want this kind of language. They don't want her race questioned. They don't want to hear that she's crazy. They don't want to hear that she's dumb. They don't want the personal attacks. More than that, though, there's some other stuff he's been saying that, we're going to prosecute her. We're going to impeach her. A lot of swing state voters and undecided voters are also telling us they don't want the chaos that defined a lot of the Trump administration. And they don't want all the oversight, the investigations, the nonsense clogging up Congress. So they're worried that if Republicans keep the House, all they're going to do is impeach and investigate and oversight. They don't want that either. So a lot of this stuff that he's saying is playing to the base, but it is not playing to the voters that he needs in this final stretch.
You're getting at something that's really, it's like two things existing at the same time, and it's like which one is going to win out, right? Yeah. Because one of the reasons, and one of the things we heard from voters ahead of the 2020 election when he lost was they were tired of the chaos.
Yeah.
They were tired of the nonsense. But now, ahead of the 24 election, we heard from a lot of voters, we really like the policies.
Yes.
I remember those good old days.
But you can't separate the two. And it's a shame because two of the top issues for voters really inure to the benefit of Donald Trump. That's immigration and the economy. If he could stick on those issues, I have no doubt he would win. But he can't. He's talking too much about issues that inure to the benefit of Harris, like abortion and women's reproductive rights. He's doing that in a way that does not appeal to these moderate voters, certainly doesn't appeal to the suburban women that he lost. So he's getting it wrong. We'll see if the issues are big enough to win out and block out the rhetoric. But I'm just telling you what we're hearing from swing state voters, the very voters.
Yeah,
will decide this.
And look, polling is showing she's closing the gap in terms of where the gap wasn't in terms of the economy. But immigration still, there is a lot of strength there to it.
Yes.
We'll see. VP debate rarely carries a lot of weight. I don't know, considering it could be the last debate of the entire cycle, do you think this one is different?
It's an inflection point, and because of the truncated nature of this election and just how wild this election has been, they need an inflection point. Everyone kind of needs another chance, another bite at the apple before November 5th. So I actually think there's going to be a lot of tune-in. I think whatever happens tomorrow night could change some minds. But yes, typically a vice presidential debate doesn't do much about an election, but we'll see.
But
this is not typical.
Nothing about this is normal.
This is not
people.
typical.
Nothing is normal. It's good to see you.
You too.
And neither are the two of us.
No.
We like it that way. Thanks, Ezzy.
Yeah.